Click on links for Odysee, be sure to leave me a note on Coffee, Discord, or email. This is Emilia Clarke's mom comic, and it's just as bad as people made it out to be, as her interviews kind of clued you into. She's a Game of Thrones girl who says she loves comics, but then she proceeds to write the uncomic, the public service announcement of comics. She says she was afraid to go into a comic book store as a kid because of toxic femininity or toxic shock syndrome, which a lot of her issues with people just make her sound like a crazy person. She sounds like she has a lot of anxiety issues, but is also blaming the wrong people. The people you're free to insult and hate are not your masters. Your masters are those you may not criticize. And it's weird how the left-wing people never stop to think about that. It's like it never occurs to them that they might just be the useful idiots. If the blonde people of the light were really in charge, why would they allow themselves to be such a hated, shrinking group? Oh, yeah, in case you haven't noticed, this is way, way overwritten. Oh, before I forget, she says, I like Ginsburg's speeches. Did you mean her decisions, her Supreme Court decisions and dissents and all that kind of stuff? You're talking about her judicial decisions in her time at the Supreme Court, right? You're not talking about her speeches. Her speeches are probably milquetoast, mundane, and rambling because she was 200 years old. You're talking about her decisions in the Supreme Court. So you're trying to make the character look smart. The character is really a self-insert. It's a weird to like have that bypass an editor and say, like, even if you literally were talking about her speeches, people would be confused about you. Most people would think you meant to say her Supreme Court decisions, which is what most scholars are studying, Supreme Court decisions, not her speeches, because her Supreme Court decisions are orders of magnitude more important than what she says off the bench. I mean, it's weird. It's like watching a NASCAR driver drive around the freeway. It's like no, you go watch them Mario Andretti drive on a racetrack or something. I know it's not NASCAR, but whatever. He's the only one I can think of. So this insane comic has every stereotype, every cliche, but it's all in one story. Even an SJW is going to look at this and go, yo, Emilia, you probably want to dial this back a little bit. I'm not saying this is your time of the month or anything, but it's a distinct possibility. So she is a beautiful, wealthy woman lecturing us on how hard it is to be a beautiful, wealthy woman in a first world country. Gee, what would it be like to have those problems of not knowing whether you should take the AMG or the Maybach? So the opening scene is a party. She's drinking free booze and snacks, a delicious martini, gin and vermouth. And she is surrounded by other first world people who are also drinking delicious adult beverages. And she's telling us how hard her life is. Dude, are you out of your freaking mind? I can't wrap my head around levels of entitlement. You have free food and drink. And it's probably very good food, because usually catered food is, a step up from what somebody can do in their kitchen. You're surrounded by the most peaceful, nice people in the world. Maybe they're not all nice, but they're not attacking you. And you're saying that to be at a party with booze and snacks is your own personal nightmare, where you get to dress up nicely and everyone's dressed up nicely. And like, how many parties do you go to nowadays where people are wearing ties anymore, or people are dressed this formally? It's pretty rare, even for these people, like these high-flung circles. Pretty rare to see people in ties at a party. Usually ties are going to come off, because why the hell would you want something around your neck? Try living in a trailer because Obama shipped your industry overseas. Her personal nightmare is a party with a bunch of peaceful English people. Go live in another country that's less nice and see how you like it. Or, maybe go walk through a tin city south of the border somewhere. Go walk through an American... Oh, well, I'll click in. All these text boxes in the back, they're not just background... What do you call it? Not matrix. It's called something in comics. They're not just background decorations to indicate that these people are having conversations. I'll zoom in on them. They're all clear. They're all meant to be read. They're all insane feminist talking points. And I guess that's a self-insert, but that's also a self-insert too. And the artist is doing a fantastic job here with facial expressions. So no knocking her. She's doing great. These are all meant to be read. You're supposed to go through this. If I read the whole comic, it would take 90 minutes. That's how friggin' just wordy and verbose it is. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing up all these like violent heckles in American cities and stuff is because all these concepts of feminism and I'll say Bolshevik policies, they all kind of go together to create these cities, and these people, these feminists, think that like, okay, what happened is like all these liberal policies of the 50s and 60s have turned Oakland and Chicago into actual nightmares. Hey, I've got a great idea. Let's take the father out of the home and replace the patriarchy with daddy government. You want to really go down the bunny slope? There's a video that I can't even tell you the website it's on because YouTube would just probably nuke the channel. It talks about, it's a video hosting website that is very, very wrong thing, but it's got some good stuff on it. They talk about how the music industry pushed gangster rap in the 80s and how the private prison pipeline system was set up. And, I'm not sure it's saying it's sworn testimony or anything, but the people seem pretty reasonable. Like, they weren't tinfoil hat people. So who knows? Take it for what it is. It's just a facet of the crystal that we're trapped in about, how gangster rap kind of got started and those people who are behind it. So liberal people seem to have this fantasy that if only they could put their policies in place, they would have this paradise. They open the borders. They give everyone universal basic income and taxpayer-funded health care and college, and all kids could cut their parts off if they wanted to. And you'd have health at every size and taxpayer-funded health care. So I'm not quite sure how that one works out. Except all these taxpayer-funded bread and circuses require a very robust economy of an increasing tax base to pay for the increasing group of people who aren't contributing. So listen, Emilia, if you know people who talk like that, men or women, that's a you problem. You're hanging out with the wrong crowd. I don't know anyone who speaks like these people you straw man claim to speak. I don't know. You seem to be right on the line of requiring medication or something. So it doesn't take a mathematician to look at a system of expanding bureaucracy and programs and a shrinking tax base and realize that that's a system that's headed for collapse. Open borders and taxpayer-funded healthcare. You're just setting the stage for civil conflict. Emilia Clarke is a beautiful, useful idiot who thinks that she's the most clever girl in the room. She's parodying Hollywood, the media, and academia, Bolshevik propaganda. She's depicting this party where a woman is lecturing an Englishman on binary stuff. What is the color of the sky in your world where these talking points are an issue? There are homeless people outside that hotel party who would be overjoyed to learn that you care more about binary issues than changing the policies that created so many homeless. That's why I bring up the policies of the 50s and 60s, because the homeless explosion did not arise from a vacuum. It was arisen from these Bolshevik policies. That was the goal all along. So apropos of nothing, most homeless people and prisoners come from single moms. Would the feminists care to address that talking point? There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. If taking fathers out of the home destroys kids, that is literally toxic femininity. Anyway, nobody talks like these people you have talking at a party. And none of these positions are impossible. Looking over your shoulder, that's in the position I'm roughly in right now. Looking over my shoulder, I just did it. Easy as pie. Nobody talks like this, not even in Hollywood. This is Tumblr, Twitter speak, the 240 character virtue signaling. People at Hollywood parties, when they're not, partying, are talking about projects that they're interested in doing or shows that they want to see or music or diets, but they're not talking about binary stuff where the punchline is, the Tumblr cliche of everyone clapped. This is peak Hollywood navel gazing. Superwoman savior syndrome. I almost said white women, but I see it in Asian and black women on social media also quite often. So it's not just that. And more so in thin, pretty young women, because not to be blunt, but on social media, thin, pretty young women of all colors get paid more attention than any other type. And, how do I say this? People indulge Emilia now for her nonsense because she's 35 and she's got a certain power in Hollywood. In a few years, that'll change. And don't blame us, blame Hollywood. It's your industry full of Weinsteins that make the rules. You guys are to blame for your sick industry. But by all means, keep lecturing us from your mansions on how important binary gender stuff is. Most people think of gender as a part of speech. And before I get too far, I do want to say that she is funny and she does have talent. And her artist is very expressive. But she needs an editor who isn't afraid of her. Feel free to call me up. I'm in the book, and I'll do it for a very reasonable rate. Oh, and the punchline is she's wearing a white dress or something, and she has her period at a party, and the men and women just behave horribly to her, like they're like 12 years old or something. Nobody cares. Men live with women their whole lives. They're very intimately familiar with female biology. they don't care the way you seem to think. I don't know who, like people like this, you got to look at me and go like, who have you been around that has treated you so horrible? And is it possible that you're the horrible one? Because, if everyone's an a-hole, you might want to look in the mirror for that. So reading this, the whole time you'll think that this is self-indulgent. This is done by an attractive Hollywood type who was never told that they have stupid ideas. As long as she's making money on screen by being thin and pretty, people will listen to whatever nonsense she spouts. So, everyone negative in the comic is an Englishman, usually blonde hair, blue eyes, who all hate women and are disgusted by women's biology. That's in England, in current year. Yeah, that's insane. That just doesn't happen. There are parts of the world where that is true, but it's not Europe or America, and we all know it. She strawmans the men to a 1950s cliche that wasn't true in the 1950s. It's a lie by Hollywood. Everything you see on a screen is a lie created by the most evil people on earth. Losing control of Hollywood was a fatal error for America and the West. There are studies that show that the more TV people watch, the less able they are to think critically. They slowly get brainwashed into this Hollywood narrative. Hollywood was able to tell lies about America, and the dumb, gullible people slowly believed it. The people in Hollywood are the most evil people on earth, but, bitch, chute and Odysee, we're waking them up as fast as possible. Oh, yeah, blonde man's a jerk because he's blonde and blue-eyed. What else did you expect? There's a lot of scenes, little scenes. Oh, she takes tablets to get her superpower. Don't take tablets to get superpowers. You'll just extinguish yourself in this mortal coil. Are these supposed to be carbon chemistry? High school chemistry was a long time ago. So is that carbon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? That's the chain, so C7. And this offshoot could be oxygen, nitrogen, OH, whatever. I don't know what it is, but are they supposed to be carbon too? At least look something up. Like put some benzene rings in there. This looks, I don't know what compound, like maybe the chemist can clue me into this. So what's the story about? English men are sexist and African men are kind and compassionate. Every good character is brown and every bad character is European. We get it. You hate Europeans and you're insane. Oh, and her kid is spouting talking points from Moses Mordecai Levy, a.k.a. Karl Marx, a.k.a. the Slaughterer. When Emilia Clarke is a wealthy woman living in a gated community with armed guards to protect her from the filthy proletariat, you and me. And there's a scene where three blonde boys, I don't know if I'm going to get to it. I do love this art. She draws a beautiful, beautiful face. There's a scene where three blonde boys, he's a SIMP or a CUCK. I don't know what YouTube is very strict these days. Three blonde boys attempt to snuggle her. You want to look up the stats on that act because the math says the odds are very long on that happening. It's weird. You see this in movies also, and it's actually not statistically likely. It's odd that Hollywood repeatedly shows the most unlikely scenario on Earth every single time. So I wonder why they don't just show the scenes as they are in the real world. I can't wrap my head around it. It's as if Hollywood has an anti-European agenda. Like they go out of their way to defame the beautiful, peaceful people of the light. It's weird. It's really weird. Oh, and she's got a purse puppy friend. I don't know who you think is on Forbes and Time, but it's not blonde people. If you think they run them or they're most likely on the cover, this is the 50s. I don't know what world you live in. This is bizarre. You have to straw man every single thing to make an argument. Yes, it's brown girl good, English girl bad. These guys will get fired by human resources in about 30 seconds. She's angry and she hates all the guys in her office. Oh, she's claiming to be an ally for a POC woman. A POC woman can get into college with a lower GPA than you. She can get a position that you're more qualified for because she has more points on the oppression ladder. She's disabled and POC. She's an ally to you. You can't do anything for her. She is in a more privileged position than you are. Don't infantilize her or treat her like this patronizing method of here's your cookie and get back to work because I'm a brown person and you're an English woman. That's insane. This is insane. I don't know where you get this savior complex for she's more privileged than you. because of the way the society is set up. Everyone is sexist. Oh yes, blonde hair, blue eyes, of course, is a fat little Trump stand-in, I guess, who says he wanted her to dress up and he needs to see her boobs at work. Are you insane? And here's the thing with sexual legal issues. A lot of times it's just going to be easier to move on and get that good recommendation than you think, oh, I'm going to take it to court, get a lawyer, and get this class action. If you're looking in terms of your own finances, it might be easier. You have to talk it over with a professional, but it might be easier to, in the totality of the circumstances, just leave right now while you can get a recommendation and move on somewhere else where that's not a problem. But talk to a professional about that. So he's talking about your cup size. Why wouldn't you just move on? You're a valued, I don't know what you do, chemist or something. Just move on. Anyway, this is, I could go on and on. Glass ceilings are acceptable, locked doors are not. Ooh, this Emilia Clarke. And nobody took you aside and said, hey, maybe this is a bit much. Like, you say you're a fan of comics, you say you read comics, but you put something like this out, like, this isn't comics, this isn't like other comics, why would you do this? Because you're a beautiful, powerful woman in Hollywood. Or, this is just self-indulgence, the comic. Anyway, I don't want to go too far. Like, comment, subscribe, guys. I'll see you on the next episode.